Yeah.
All right, so welcome to the NerdBrand Podcast, everybody. Yes, this is a nostalgic moment. This is not 2021. This was not recorded in 2021. This was recorded right on the weekend of July 4th. Why are we doing remote? Maybe you're wondering. Maybe you don't care. Maybe you just want us to get to the point of the show. But we're doing this because, you know, the studio had a little bit of a COVID thing. And so everybody's at home. We are all wearing pants if you're watching this on YouTube. Don't worry. We're not going to stand up and show you because that will make it even more weird than me mentioning the fact that we all are wearing pants.
Running shorts count?
On the show. So for the audio folks on the show, we have Mitch, our creative director, here with us. He's giving some thumbs up. And yes, I do narrate, I know, on video because we have more audio listeners than we have video. And we also have Michaela Meek, who is our account associate and rocking it at all of these networking events locally and chamber stuff and just everything. You're just, you know, our visibility is up because of you, I think. A lot of people like point at me and I'm like, I've not changed what I've been doing. I've actually withdrawn from groups.
It was the ribbon cutting. It was a ribbon cutting through the J-Town chamber. Mm-hmm. And one of the employees with J-Town was like, oh, you're like a rock star now. And I'm like, I am not trying to be. I'm just doing my job.
That says something, though.
Just sends me an invite. I go. I have fun. I talk to people. I just do my job. That's what I like to do.
When you've reached rock star status and you're not even trying, that's saying something.
Yeah. I mean, I try whenever I put one foot in front of the other and get into my car because I'm like, gosh, I don't really want to pay for the gas for this, but you know what? There's going to be food there.
Yeah, I know there's like, you do have to weigh that. Like I look at, there's an event tonight at Norton Commons. They have like food truck Fridays, I believe. And I don't know if it's every Friday. So if you're listening to this or watching this, Norton Commons, Maria Mears, you can talk to her. I think they've rebranded to Stroll Noco and they do a food truck Friday there. And it's from 6 to 8, I think. So I might be going out that way, but I live in New Albany. So it's like a 40-minute drive. It's just insane. And so it's kind of one of those debatable things, given gas prices are still around $5 a gallon. So I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I'll figure that out as we get closer to that time of day. But anyways, for this episode of the podcast, we're talking about, well, we're not really talking about it. We're just going to play a game. Would you like to play a game? And it's genericization. I think I'm saying it right. I know, Mitch, you probably know what this is, but
I have an inkling.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask 5 questions and I'm going to leave a blank and then you all fill in the blank of what comes to your mind. And then we'll kind of explain what this is. And I think as we go, it's for those listening or watching, they'll be like, haha, I know where this topic's going. If you sneezed, you would go to the bathroom and get a blank to blow your nose.
Kleenex.
Okay. Mitch? Do you want to have an answer, or are you just like...
I was going to say tissue, but Mitch, I know where this is going.
You know, you can always spot the creative director or creative person in the group because it's always way out there on the edge of something.
Oh, yeah. Tissue is very out there.
What brand, though? Are you more of a, what is it called, a puff guy? Are you a Charmin guy?
Whatever's on sale.
Yeah. He's like mainstays.
Actually, Meyer's house brand is pretty good.
Yeah, but I never say like, I need to go blow my nose and grab a Meyer.
No.
Yeah, that would be weird. Anyway,
that kind of sounds like you're referring to like an Oscar Mayer hot dog.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking. and blowing your nose with a hot dog.
Take it.
Bun or no bun?
Wow, there's a commercial for them. That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
You're doing it wrong.
All right. If you were thirsty, you'd go to the vending machine and buy a blank.
Coke.
Yeah.
Okay.
Soda pop.
A tool that is a non-lethal means to stop someone is a blank.
Oh, taser.
I was thinking pepper spray.
Yeah, taser's correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I keep my coffee in a blank when I go camping.
Yeti?
Well, that's interesting.
Thermos?
Thermos. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, the statement that I made before about the creative people who make answers that are way out there on the... Nope. We're finding out that does not apply or is true at all. And number 5, I need to use blank for my lips in the winter.
Chapstick.
Yeah. And then, so hopefully, if you're listening or watching or one of us, if I needed what you're selling, I'd pick the phone up and call NerdBrand or your brand. So we hopefully can understand, like, it's having your name and brand synonymous with the product is one of the pinnacles of just branding. You just kind of get to the point where when people call the thing that is actually the company's name is the thing, it's amazing when that happens. But also there is one pitfall. You could lose your trademark. Because at that point, you're kind of like, because everybody's saying it. It's, the on, Google is like a part of this. Like you always say, oh, go Google it. You're not going to say I'm going to Bing that or Yahoo it.
Because nobody does anymore.
Yeah. There is a fun fact though, and it is happening with TikTok. It is starting to surpass Google in searches. That is something that is, funny enough, has been possible thanks to Google. But that's for another show, because that is an ongoing developing thing. So stay tuned for our episodes in the future. So yeah, imagine if you're a Pepsi rep and you're going in and they keep saying Coke.
You do wonder if how much of that is, this whole, for example, like I said with Coke, you go to a vending machine to get a Coke as being the generic term you use for soft drink. I wonder how much of that's regional. Because I know if you go up into the Northeast or the northern Midwest, you go up like Chicago, and it's a pop, which is kind of a generic term. Soda in some places of the country, but it's like you said, when your brand has reached a certain level where it's synonymous with whatever product category that it exists in its universe. I mean, that's the kind of brand equity you can't buy. And it speaks to the longevity and popularity of that brand. And generally you only get that if you're like one of the first.
Yeah.
But one of the first in that category, or the most prominent in that category. Coke, Google, you mentioned Google, back when search engines were more competitive, it still became commonplace just to say you were going to Google something regardless of what search engine.
I mean, even TikTok, I feel like it's become a verb. Like you're sitting on the couch, your friend is on their phone, you're like, hey, what are you looking at? Like, oh, I'm just TikToking.
Yeah.
Right. It's an action. It's not a noun.
Yeah. It's a little harder to say I'm YouTubing it. Yeah. There is something in clever naming as well that helps lean into that. I've always noticed that it's like the amount of syllables, the way it's alliterated.
How it just rolls off the tongue too. Like, does it sound right?
Yeah. You guys, I mean, the correct answers to everything, I mean, these are all company names. Kleenex, with the exception of Coke, because it's actually Coca Cola, and it's spelled Coca, not Coke. So it's Coca Cola, but it's always referred to as Coke, even though they do use Coke as part of the name, which is very interesting. Maybe that's another podcast. We talk about Coca Cola a lot. We have issues. We should probably.
We like our soda.
Yeah, at least I do. I think it's like I'm just like caffeine, sugar. But yeah, Kleenex and Coke, and you actually mentioned Yeti, which I thought was interesting. Instead of thermos.
I feel like that's become an item that has been more popular over the years. Especially like when you're out by a pool and it's really hot They're a very insulated mug, and I feel like, oh, I'm gonna refill my Yeti with water and ice.
Yeah.
Like when I worked once upon a time when I worked at a pool patio bar, lots of members would come up to me and be like, "Can you refill my Yeti?" Not my thermos, not my travel mug, always Yeti. So
yeah, and some of that's generational. I mean, because Yeti's has become really, really popular with a huge swath of, like, I'd say probably the 25 and up.
Yeah. Because I hear Yeti, I'm thinking like, you mean like Finding Bigfoot? Which, if John were here, he'd give me crap for that. He'd be like, "Yeah, we know you're out in the woods, Jason, going or whatever they do to find them."
You're like that one guy from Rudolph. What's his name? Cornelius.
Yukon Cornelius.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that's really stepping back. Like, yeah, I always find that fascinating. By the way, with that on those channels, like, the aliens and Bigfoot and all that. I'm just like, look, okay. Anyways, that's another episode. We're planning out episodes.
Tangent.
Yeah, tangent. We're planning out episodes as we go. Yeah, and then also, like, we finished up with Taser and Chapstick. Taser, I didn't even know was a brand name, but it is.
It
was like they were like the first or one of the very first.
I mean, I own one, but I don't know what it's called. Like, it was given to me. Like, oh, here you go. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Fun. Didn't know the brand or anything, but I know that it was blue, or that it's blue.
Yeah. You could always think, like, maybe like when somebody was sitting in the room, like, what do we call this thing? It's like, do we call it like electric blue lights that really hurt and make you pee? Or do we,
Shell shocker is what you're gonna call it.
Yeah.
You're about to get shell shocked.
Yeah, you're about to wetter pantser, or it's gonna really, hurt a lot. Not that I've been tased by it. I've never been tased, by the way.
Or you could just play that song by the Beach Boys, "Good Vibrations," even though it's bad vibrations.
Yeah, it would always be kind of, and I imagine some of these brands have their histories where they say, like, here's how we came up with the name, because you kind of have to know, or would want to know, like, stuff like this and take advantage of it. Wikipedia has become one of the things on the search engine that I've noticed with knowledge panels. Every time I go for something and I want to know, did Google get it right?
That's my line.
Yeah. There's a knowledge panel, and the source is usually Wikipedia, which I find is incredibly funny. But it's something that is where we live at now today. With that, we have these brands that I think some new ones coming up. I don't know if you all can think of any on the fly right now that would come to your mind that are actually like staples that maybe like that, for a product that is synonymous as the brand name.
I mean, to piggyback what you said on Wikipedia, I was always given like a negative connotation with that. Like, research project, they're like, don't use that. That is not a reliable source.
Right. That's so ironic. I mean, to what you said, Jason. I mean, the fact that you go to the knowledge panels on Google and the citation is invariably Wikipedia, but it's like you said, Michaela. I remember a time not that long ago when Wikipedia people looked at you kind of weird never recommended you use Wikipedia as a source for information, but Google's using it as a primary. So what's happened?
Yeah, I was taught that because I was also in that school of thought where if I wrote a paper and I turned it to the professor and they saw that was my source, the paper was just not going to happen. But then later on, what happened, and this is like 2005 and 6, somewhere around there, they started loosening up on that because the school of thought was like, wait a minute, okay, so if this appears in 20 places, then they all kind of say the same thing and they're verifying one another, then okay, then you probably have a verified source that Wikipedia is pulling from, so it's fine as long as you name that source, but you still couldn't say Wikipedia, which I thought was funny. Kind of goes back to that
Yes.
viral videos, is if Google were a guy. And one of my favorite parts was this person was like looking for something. And if Google were, he's in this desk and he's got all these papers stacked around him and he's trying to find this thing this person's looking for. And he finds one paper out of this millions of stacks of paper around him. And the guy goes, yes, it's the truth. But it was just one. It wasn't verified across others.
Oops.
But I think that's why we probably see Wikipedia. Wikipedia is very good at citations.
Mm-hmm.
And so it has these backlinks that are going to it from these other places. And Google is just crawling through that and goes, kind of like what Jason Bernard has issued before, like Google's a child. It's learning. It's getting it verified by the auntie, the uncle, the grandma, the whatever, the friend next door. And that's what's happening, why you see it as a part of the knowledge panel. Not to say that every knowledge panel would be Wikipedia, but Wikipedia has replaced encyclopedia in our vocabulary when it comes to where we go and learn things.
Like I was barely using them when I was in elementary school. Like we would look at them, like it was our library day, and like, oh, today we're going to focus on the letter O. I'm like, okay.
My family is one of the, we couldn't afford encyclopedias, so we always used to had to hit up a neighbor or a family member that did, because they were so outrageously expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember Britannica.
There was World Book, Encyclopedia. I always liked World Book. I don't know why, but when I was a kid, World Book was my go-to encyclopedia. There's Encyclopedia Britannica. That was the other one, and there was probably others.
Yeah. I know that when thinking about like everyday products to use, like Frigidaire, I always think about with refrigerators. I don't really think Whirlpool and GE just because they got the word fridge in it.
Frigidaire. It's another one of those words that kind of has become, or at least for a period of time, was synonymous.
Yeah,
I'd say probably with boomers and maybe a little bit into Gen X. My dad says it. Go get whatever out of the Frigidaire.
Yeah,
it's a Whirlpool, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah. So it is a generational thing where these things happen. Some of the ones that we kind of went through are like, these have been around for very long time, or like you said, Michaela, was one of the first. And it's just like, now it's not necessarily the word. It could be part of the word, like Frigidaire. It could be part of, some of that category line or whatever. So it's very clever. I mean, obviously we're called NerdBrand, and I know that, it's called NerdBrand Agency. I've stated before, I don't call it NerdBrand Brand Agency. I'm like, because I don't stutter. I mean, that's just a fact. Like you call it what it is. It kind of just let it breathe. Sometimes these things, they will find their ways and uses. And yeah, it's kind of funny when they don't get used the way you would hope or like, and they become, like you said, verbed with like TikTok, for example. I'm TikToking it.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that you can think of in social media is Twitter. I tweeted it. I don't know how the transition from Twitter to tweet went, but I could imagine that the bird logo and iconography had a lot to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
That should maybe be the title of this podcast: how to get your brand verbed, or brands that got verbed.
Yeah, brands that got verbed, and Jason cannot pronounce genericization well, even though I'm pretty sure it's right. But that's just, but anyways, why would you not want to have, what would be a case or scenario where you do not want your brand verbed?
You don't want it verbed?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the only thing I can think of that comes to mind, Michaela, will jump in here if anything pops into your head, but your brand becomes, I don't know if it becomes nebulous. It doesn't, because it becomes such a common word,
$20
because
word.
it becomes such a common word, people your brand doesn't stand out anymore. Maybe it detracts from it being unique, because it defines a category. That doesn't necessarily mean brand recognition does not necessarily equate to brand purchase. You know what I'm saying? For example, I'm going to go to the convenience store and get a Coke. Well, I don't necessarily mean a Coke. I mean a soft drink. And it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to buy a Coke. So does that mean that your brand has become so much part of the background that though it helps define a category, it doesn't necessarily become the top of mind brand for purchase?
Wow, this podcast just went to becoming fun to becoming very philosophical and deep. You did like,
you get me talking about branding and it's going to happen.
I mean, man, it all started with a $20 word, nebulous. Like, this is why we can't make money, Mitch, because you keep spending it. Like, there's like a slot machine somewhere. We go get words out and put them on copy, and Mitch is just like cha-ching, cha-chinging it everywhere.
This is why we're good at what we do, because we think of the things that normal people don't.
Well, that's always the thing in advertising is that, there's a lot of people that have a lot of great ideas, but then you kind of have to think about like, is it really, I mean, it sounds fun, but does it really apply? Is it really a thing that you want to do? Because you could end up creating a negative connotation and accidentally memeing the thing you want that is, you don't want it memed in that way because it'd be negative, and go viral in a negative way.
Yeah.
That's really,
or it just makes you fall in the background.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And to piggyback on what you were saying, Jason, like the meme thing, I feel like that kind of falls down the rabbit hole whenever something starts to develop that negative connotation too, like any sort of brand or any sort of political statement, anything that's like going awry in today's society, you make a meme out of it.
Yeah. I remember years ago. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was done. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just saying, I remember years ago, and not too much. Hashtags are very strongly used on TikTok, but I don't know much about Twitter. That would be John's territory and yours, but I guess there was a campaign called Cowboys UK. Now, if you spell that out, it's Cowboys Suck. Is what it looks like it says, and it didn't really go very well. And this is when the NFL they were, I don't know, sports ball everybody's. It's me. It's not, I'm not qualified to talk about it, but I remember on Twitter they were doing a thing in the United Kingdom, and so they went over there to play. So they did.
Yeah, NFL does a few games in Europe.
So they play at like 9 a.m. over there, and they broadcast it to the U.S. Yeah, but it's only a couple times a year.
Yeah, but the hashtag Cowboys UK was not a good idea. Nobody thought even if it capitalized the UK, it still didn't. Everybody on Twitter just grabbed a hold of that and it was like, yeah, Cowboys do suck.
Put an underscore in there or something.
Right?
Something. I mean, I can attest the Cowboys suck, but it's coming from a New York Giants fan from the same conference. So sorry, fans, if you're a Cowboys fan.
Well, there went half our listener base.
Redskin fans may have something to say too.
I mean, they're not good. The Cowboys are in our conference, so they're like probably the best ones.
Wait. It's not the Redskins anymore. Oh my goodness, the old guy came out.
The Washington football team.
No, no, they actually came up with a name, and
they did.
This, I think that oh Lord, what do they call themselves now? It's not Generals.
I think Generals is for the Cleveland baseball team because they changed it from Indians to Generals, maybe, or
is it Sentinels or something like that? See, this is what's happened though. This not to wander into another tangent. Look what's happened to sports team names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't. I don't think, and I don't think they resonate like they used to, because these cities are trying to weave their way through the minefield of not offending anybody, and sometimes it seems like they come up with things that just they don't pop. The names don't pop. The names don't sing.
Well, I'm part Blackfoot Indian, and I can tell you, I don't really care. A lot of people don't know that because I look, I'm very much a white guy, very much, and that's the Irish in me that comes out stronger. But the reason why the other part is like, yeah, Blackfoot Indian. So yeah, it's something that I can understand changing the name, but when you do that, you had to work really hard and launch a really strong campaign to get everybody used to that new name, because you've had this such like almost a century of just being called a thing. Like, even if you've been around for 10 years, I remember Infusionsoft recently renamed to Keep. And so people talk about Keep like it's a new product, and I'm like, no, that's what Infusionsoft was called. So, as far as I know, I mean, I don't know if maybe I read the campaign wrong, but that kind of goes to the messaging pieces of, if you're going to like change your name or do something to pivot like that, you really have to think about your ad campaigns, not so much about your marketing. Branding does not replace marketing at all. It is actually there to provide a foundation for it. So branding is strategy, marketing is tactical. Think of it that way. There's always been the debate raging online because the last 10 years now is branding has become very much top of mind, more so than marketing with companies, given what's going on in our society and culture. Everything is just circling around it more. And so a lot of brands were neglected. A lot of household brands just kind of like rested on their laurels, and now they're like, oh, we should probably come back and reinvigorate and do something to draw in a new audience, or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time to watch branding, to talk about it, to interact with it. So if you're out there and listening, we appreciate it. But we're going to wrap it up here. And if you have any brands that you know of that you think that we missed, which I'm sure there is plenty that are part of that, I'm going to say it again, and I'm looking at how I wrote it because pronunciation. Genericization. If you think of any brands that are basically now a part of that category and this, synonymous with it, let us know in the comments. Go to YouTube, like, subscribe, and then let us know in the comments. There is a weird thing in the YouTube algorithm now about comments versus likes now with the health of your channel. I don't think anybody really knows what's going on anymore with the internet, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Mm-hmm. But yes.
Oh, by the way,
yes.
Before we close,
yeah,
it's the Washington Commanders.
Okay.
And the Cleveland Guardians.
Guardians. I knew it started with a G.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, got very authoritarian there, didn't they, with all those names? Like,
oh no, it's the Commanders.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Anytime I think of a Washington name like that, I can't remember the name of the team that the Harlem Globetrotters always play and always beat.
I don't know.
Either.
I can Google it real quick.
Yeah. Did Google get it right? There's our segment. But anyways, we appreciate everybody out there. Like, subscribe, tune in. We've got some fun stuff that's coming up, some announcements we'll be making within a few weeks, we hope, and for a series that we're planning on doing that we think will be a lot of fun. If you'd like to, if you're interested and you'd like to be a guest, you know how to go and find us. If you'd like to just listen to the show or watch it, you can go to nerdbrandagency.com/podcast, or you can just find us anywhere on social media using the handle @NerdBrandAgency. And we finally have reached a point, of course, within the last 6 months where you can just Google Nerd Brand Agency or Nerd Brand Podcast, and Google will tell you where to find us. I do want to close the show. This is the last thing to mention because I think it was a fascinating episode. I do want to give a shout out to Jason Bernard at CaliCube Pro, CaliCube Tuesdays, and recommend you go check that out. It's an excellent show that he does and has guests on. I was on there about 2 weeks ago, and last week or so he had guests on talking about SEO, podcast SEO, or SEOing a podcast. It's a very, very interesting debate a healthy one. So where you walk away and there's not a wrong answer, but there are specific things depending on the tactics, but you can do it. But I would recommend checking out CaliQ Pro. You can find it on LinkedIn. And if you just want to ask us about it, we're happy to tell you where to find it. So anyways, that's going to do it for this episode of the NerdBrand Podcast. And we'll see you next week. And remember, keep your NerdBrand strong.